Okay, so we're talking about why PR isn't a tap for sales, but it does help nurture trust and reputation. The first thing I think we should talk about is, why do people generally misunderstand the role of PR in B2B marketing?
I think it boils down to this expectation of short-term performance and immediate results, whereas it's all about building perception and building the brand as opposed to return on investment and performance marketing. It's not about instant results. It's about that relaying a message and relaying a topic that eventually will then cut through that noise to then bring you the result.
Yeah, this is the point about a slow burn. It's not something that you just turn the tap on and there is an immediate end result, there's an immediate goal, there's an immediate funnel of net new leads. If that's not the point, though, what does PR do for a business? What is the point of PR?
And I think this ultimately comes down to understanding the role that it plays in different parts of the business. So myself coming from a marketing background, but also having played roles in communications functions as well. The two work together, but they are very different. And in a B2B marketing context, yes, you're using PR to raise awareness for a product, to position yourselves as a thought leader or an authority voice. But you're not necessarily using it as a tool to communicate the values or the ethos of a business. That typically would traditionally come down to a communications function. So there you've got corporate communications where you might be sending out the financials for the year. You might be sending out your CSR strategy for the year. But no, that's not going to make you sales. That's the comms side of PR. And I think that is often the miscommunication or the lack of understanding, particularly in roles outside of marketing and comms, not to name any names.
Never. Why would we name names? That would be just rude and crass. And the point being that PR's there to build credibility. You don't go and buy from a brand that you've never heard of. You don't buy from people you don't trust. And it's all part of a larger jigsaw puzzle. It's not sales or PR or marketing or communications. It's all part of one large business function. And I think that sense of building trust being part of the long-term strategy of any business. If you don't have trust, if your customers and your potential leads don't know who you are, they don't trust you, they don't see that other people have trusted you, then they're never going to buy from you. They're never going to action everything that you might want them to. How does PR translate through just communications, and how does it actually affect the buying process?
It comes down to that point of that recognition. You're planting that seed, ultimately. Say a product review, for example, you've seen that in some key publication where you consume all of your product. But I think a really good example in an industry that heavily relies on this is mobile phones. Yeah. So everyone will go to GSM Arena, everyone will go to Tech Radar. Everyone ultimately would gain their trust from looking at a review on that website. They know it's credible. Ultimately, it plays a critical role in the buying process because you're planting that seed about the ability of the product. If you get a backlink in that piece of coverage, even better, because then you can actually justify the metric of it. And that, to an extent, it brings in the performance element. But you shouldn't rely too heavily on that, because ultimately that's the next function's responsibility, is driving that journey, the digital marketing side, through the website to ultimately get to conversion. It's classic funneled marketing.
Yeah, people talk about the sales and marketing funnel all the time. They often forget that the top of the funnel is there just for awareness. People aren't going to do anything if they've never heard of you. And the bottom of the funnel is that sales and is that conversion, which brings in other functions than marketing and PR and sales. There are all the sort of business support functions. The crucial element is that people buy from people. People don't buy from spec sheets. People don't buy from statistics. They might like to know how fast a computer is, or how bright a light is, or that your motion capture software is the most accurate down to the nanometer. But at the end of the day, people buy from either people they trust that have recommended a product or a service, or a sales team or a marketing team or an outlet, a media outlet that's well established that they know.
Yeah.
That's one side of PR as a function to support the early days and the long-term nature of a sales pipeline. But there are other aspects of PR that come into play beyond customers.
Yep.
Where can PR help to support a business and its communication strategy and its profile beyond the value of customers?
And that comes again, it comes down to that perception. It comes down to the brand awareness, and how you are delivering on that comes down to a multitude of channels, be that through traditional earned media, be that through communication with key target press or influencers, stakeholders, thought leaders on social channels. And that goes from everything from LinkedIn through to Instagram to YouTube. I mean, B2B. Well, then, if you're working in an industry where perhaps you have a prosumer audience, then you're going to have to start thinking outside of the box in terms of where you're channeling that to. So I think ultimately you have to think about different outlets, different channels, and different ways of communicating with your audience.
I think there's a sense of mapping that target audience.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's not just your sales prospects and your leads. You're looking for investor relations. You're looking for talent, recruitment. You're looking for people who might engage with you as a member of staff or an applicant or an advocate further down the line. It's, I think, one of the most frustrating things for businesses generally when it comes to PR is the amount of time that it takes. Is there a way for people to get there faster? Can you shortcut the process?
Depends on the news or the message that you're trying to get across. Because if you want someone to build trust or gain trust in a product, that is going to ultimately take a trial and a test. It's going to take numerous perspectives on that product or on a process or on a brand or a piece of software, whatever you name it. It ultimately comes back to the point of building trust, and that is not instant. However, if you are using PR as a tool to perhaps mystify a misconception, perhaps on a company's positioning, a stakeholder's positioning, perhaps they've been misquoted somewhere, you can use that immediately as a tool, yes, to rectify that situation. So I think there's no right or wrong answer there. I think it really depends on the nature of the communication at hand.
In terms of brand credibility and brand trust and being part of that marketing and sales pipeline or communications and sales pipeline, there's no fast way of doing it. When your brand is already established and you're addressing a concern raised in the media, or you're announcing a new product or a new feature or a new service or a win of some kind, a success story, then you've got an immediate outlet because you've already done the foundation work. The point is, PR won't save a bad product or close deals overnight. There's no way it can do that, but it will make sure that a brand gets taken seriously before the first conversation.
Absolutely. And interestingly, looking at a report from Decision, it's their earned media performance report in 2023, 66% of marketers say earned media directly drives the pipeline, and 50% of them link it to revenue. So ultimately, truly don't see it as fluff per se. It's influencing real business outcomes. And I think that's a critical point to get across.
Let's talk briefly then about, we've covered a little bit about PR not being an immediate tap. It's not immediate when it takes time to build. One of the questions, particularly now, is what counts? What media outlets count for PR reach?
I think particularly in certain sectors, those that may be a bit old school, a bit more traditional, they may see traditional press, traditional media as the pinnacle, the absolute go-to. And yes, it is within certain industries, because your peers, the stakeholders, are all consuming these traditional outlets. And that's great. It doesn't mean that it's discredited. But it comes down to who your audience is. And the younger generation are certainly going to be consuming all of that information from LinkedIn, from social media outlets. And people think LinkedIn, oh, that's nothing to do with influencers. Well, here's thought leadership content. Are you consuming them? They are influencers in their own right, not necessarily paying them. But that also plays a role as well, because the influencer marketing is ultimately the public perception.
Yeah.
And that plays a part in PR. It plays a part in your strategy, not necessarily communications. Yes, to a point, but it depends what they're communicating. And if you're looking at communications from a traditional point of view, then that is more, it's more corporate as opposed to the sales side. So great examples of some of the brands that we worked with, say Move AI, for example. We major product launch for them when they were in their startup phase. And we worked with a number of key YouTube, Instagram creators. And some of them were paid, some of them weren't. It really depended on the stage that are in their journey and kind of what their wants and needs were. But we worked on a very, very fine-tuned craft messages with them that suited their audience. And I could talk for hours about how to do influencer marketing properly. But it was a case of fine-tuning the messages with them to relay them in the right way to their audience that could be consumed and taking the product seriously, using metrics such as backlinks to the product, to download the product itself. So there was a lot more digital PR and digital marketing that fell into that content.
This is part of the misnomer of the term influencer marketing, which it doesn't quite fit, because PR is usually viewed as something that is a message that you place in a magazine, in an outlet, in a news outlet, whether it's a butcher newspaper, a print magazine, a website. But more and more and more, it does cover social media as well. PR either gets published on social media by people who are not you, a reputable outlet that is not one of your owned channels, or shared on social media. The point being, you can place something in the Sunday Times or in broadcast tech or televisual, but at the same time, you do want to be looking at influencing channels. So can you play something with, I don't know, Jonathan Wimbush? Can you get coverage from Corey Williams if you're looking at Motion Capture, for example? They are now media outlets. The outlet landscape is vastly broader than it was 10, 20 years ago. So the strategies that people have often employed up until this point need tweaking and updating to not just think about printed collateral or written collateral that's going to go to a reputable industry magazine, but also reaching out to influencers for either paid opportunities if you're going down the advertorial or the marketing route, but ideally just that earned coverage. And if your message is strong and if your message is good and people care, then you can activate more channels and more reach and more spread, and it all falls under that banner of public and press relations. It's press, but in a different form.
No, it's just a different touch point.
Yeah.